What's going on, y'all? I'm back once again with a late upload this week. Had some traveling going on, so I'll bring that up in a little bit. But first, let's get into NFL a little bit. So, sadly, the Christian McCaffrey streak ends. I believe it was at 17 straight games where he had scored a touchdown. They won 34-3 in Jacksonville, and it was obvious they were trying to get CMC his touchdown at the end. They ran it 4 straight plays with him. Honestly, it'd be cool to have that record. I think that would have broke the record, but I mean, he's a star player. He's already proven to be banged up a little bit this season. I don't know if you risk that, but they ended up winning, dominating. They're back officially, 34-3 in that one. Cowboys dominated. Shocker. They dominated every time they played home. It feels like they beat the Giants 49-17, and I believe for the season that total against the Giants in their 2 games was 89-17. So absolute massacre of a season for that duo. And then the Browns got a huge win in Baltimore, 33-31 as time expired. And I believe this was the most games decided as the time went out. So game-winning field goals, whatever, most ever in a week. I don't know. It was 5 or 6 games that were won on a game-winning field goal as time expired. So it was an exciting week. Texans won at Bengals on a game-winning field goal too. So it was chaotic, a hectic week of NFL. But so now I'm filming this on Thursday. It just hit halftime of Thursday Night Football. It was 21-10 Ravens. This game so far has been a story of injuries. Lamar went out, I believe, with an ankle injury. He came back, and then Joe Burrow went out with a wrist injury. So Lamar ended up returning, but Joe was out last that I saw, with Jake Browning being his backup that was playing. So I guess we'll see how that goes from there. But it'll be an exciting week of NFL with this upcoming Monday being Eagles at Chiefs, both off of a bye. So it'll be a fun week, and I think this is a point in the season where we truly see who is who. We'll see people saying Jaguars are frauds, Dolphins are frauds. I mean, that all is shown this week. So it's an exciting time for NFL. But on the NBA side of things, we had one of the wildest fights I remember seeing in my life. Draymond put Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. So this was wild. This was before a single point was scored in the game. I think it was Klay Thompson and Jayden McDaniels got tied up. Jayden McDaniels ended up ripping his jersey or something. Draymond said Rudy had Klay in a chokehold or something, and Draymond Green went up and put him in a chokehold. I think 3 players ended up getting kicked out of the game, suspended. Draymond got suspended for a few games. It was wild. And we got to see a few days ago Victor Wembanyama versus Chet Holmgren, which is kind of the future of basketball. 2 over 7-foot guys that can dribble, shoot, do it all, and they guarded each other most of the game. But they both played pretty well. Victor ended with 8, 14, 2 assists, and 2 blocks. Chet had 9 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block. So they were similar stat lines, but it's 2 dudes that are legit the future of basketball. That's exactly how it's gonna go. It seems like in the future. So for college basketball, now this is the week that I officially consider college basketball back. I know it tipped off a little over a week ago now, but when the Champions Classic starts, that's where I truly believe the tip-off, and it's officially started. So the Champions Classic, for those of y'all that don't know, it's Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, Michigan State, and it kind of travels around to go to Chicago, New York, Indianapolis, all these different cities play in NBA arenas. And me and a few friends, we've started a tradition of going to that. So I went to Chicago this year for this. And instead of going in deep detail of these 4 teams from these games, so we had Kansas, Kentucky, so my Wildcats playing the Jayhawks, and then we had Duke, Michigan State that started it all at 7. So instead of going into deep detail or anything, I just put 2 words for each of them just to kind of sum up what that game was. So for Kansas, veteran leaders. So they have DeJuan Harris. He's a point guard for them. He ended up balling out. Not necessarily a scorer going into it, but he claims he can score when he needs to. And he did. He hit 3 or 4 threes. He's a junior now, I believe. They had KJ Adams, who's a sophomore now. He's seen some things. Hunter Dickinson, obviously, he balled out. He had, let me get the correct numbers down for him. I think he's a 5th-year senior now. But he absolutely balled out. And it was expected. He had 27 points, 21 rebounds. He was the first 2020 game in the Champions Classic. Kentucky, we're missing 3 7-footers. Our tallest guy is 6'9". Hunter Dickinson's like 7'1", 7'2". So it was kind of expected that he would go off like that. But, yeah, the veteran leaders showed out. Kevin McCullough had a triple-double. So I think he's a senior now, transferred from Texas Tech, been there a couple of years. Yeah, he had a triple-double. I think he's the 3rd player to ever have a triple-double against Kentucky. So the veterans showed in them. And on the other side, for Kentucky, I put Rob Dillingham as the 2 words. Rob showed exactly what Rob is. We've talked about it a lot in the offseason. Rob is going to make the best play of the game for you and the worst play of the game for you. And it happened. There was a stretch in this game where he hit 2 or 3 threes straight. Then we went down, got a stop. He dribbled up, passed it over to Antonio Reeves. We had another 3. It was like a 12-0 run. So there's the good side. Late in the game, I think we're up like 4. He just takes a stupid shot, both feet on the line, like a 1 step ahead of the 3, and airballs it. So he showed the good, the bad, and the ugly. But Rob Dillingham had like 16 at half. So the flashes were there. And, Rob, he's so fun to watch. Rob is a blast. But DJ Wagner and Justin Edwards, who are probably going to be, if it goes how it's projected, they would be 2 lottery picks. They combined for 1 for 8. I think 5 points total. So, not the best outing from them. And Antonio Reeves is like our kind of main veteran scoring presence. He shot 17 threes. So, he shot a lot. But he had, I think, 24. But a big shout out to Trey Mitchell. He had the responsibility of Hunter Dickinson. He played 39 minutes, I think. So he was definitely dog-tired. Adu Thiero was definitely dog-tired after the game. He balled out. He was the most shocking thing to me. He had, I don't know how many points, but he ended up with a double-double. A few putback dunks. He was doing everything we needed him to do. So, Kentucky, and if you look it in the media, this is not just from a biased Kentucky fan. Kentucky's going to be dangerous when we get those big men back. So, yeah, this will be this is a fun team. They're fun to watch, that's for sure. For Duke, I put Caleb Foster. He's a incoming freshman for them. He came off the bench and led the team in points with 18. It felt like every time they needed a 3, they turned to him, and he was able to knock it down. So, Flit, obviously, he balled out. He's obviously an amazing player. Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, they got a lot of the same guys from last year. They basically have the same roster except Derek Lively. He's obviously gone with the Mavericks now. But yeah, Caleb Foster. I think he honestly, if he plays like this, he will just take all of Jared McCain's minutes because that's kind of who he's fighting with for that role of being like that third guard for Duke. So Duke ended up winning their game against Michigan State. For Michigan State, I put disappointed and optimistic. So disappointed because you're 1-2. You were not expecting to be having a losing record through this point, through 3 games. But optimistic because the Big Ten is not necessarily great. Rutgers is good. Ohio State and Michigan will always be very competitive. But With Micah Shrewsbury leaving Penn State, I don't see them being as much of a threat this year as they were last year. But and you also have a Hall of Famer, Tom Izzo, on your sideline. So I think a lot of optimism for them. But yeah, I think like they can't really do worse than how they started this season. So I just think with that recruiting class, which Tom Izzo's not always done good with freshmen, but I think with that recruiting class and just who you brought back, if they can just figure out how to shoot, that team is going to be dangerous when it comes to March. That's their only flaw right now. They just can't figure out offense. There's no one just to turn to, which is exactly what Hauser was for them last year. But optimistic. If you've got Tom Izzo on your sideline, you always have a chance. So that's kind of my thoughts on those four. Outside of them, I mean, Texas looks good. North Carolina looks good. Louisville looks terrible. I mean, Indiana, they look good. Mackenzie Mbako is definitely disappointing so far, to me, from what I thought he was going to be for this season. But, yeah, I mean, college basketball, though, it's officially back. We're starting to get these matchups. Ed Cooley and his now Georgetown Hoyas went to Rutgers. So that was a good game last night. I mean, we're starting to get these matchups. Well, we'll start getting into conference soon, too. But, yeah, I mean, soon the SEC, ACC matchups happen. So we play Miami at Rupp here in a couple weeks. So, yeah, it's a fun time. This is where all the sports are happening. Obviously, baseball just ended, but, yeah, it's a fun time of the year. College basketball is officially back. So getting into Week 11 college football, the weekend that just passed. First game I want to mention is a game where I would say this is probably one of the first times, if not the only time it's ever happened. Two head coaches got fired in the same game. So they coached against each other, Jimbo Fisher and Zach Arnett. It was Texas A&M versus Mississippi State. A&M won 51-10, and both head coaches were fired by Monday night. So Jimbo Fisher's buyout, I think, is $77 million. So he basically he's living the best life you can possibly live. He's getting paid to not do anything. So, yeah, and I'm pretty sure there's something in that contract where, like, no matter if he takes a job or does absolutely nothing, they have to pay him that. So A&M's got the money. I don't know who they're going to go after. There was the rumors of Dan Lanning. He's already shut those down. Dan Campbell, I don't know why he would leave. Ryan Day is a name that's starting to go around a ton. I've heard some people say throw just the stupidest contract you have towards Kirby Smart. I don't see a world where Kirby Smart leaves. I just don't see. I think Lance Leipold would be a good one that I could see them going after. I think the best hire that they could possibly have is Mike Elko from Duke. I'm pretty sure Mike Elko, I think he was the defensive coordinator there like a few years back. So there's already a connection, but I think he would be a good hire. And then for Zach Arnett, I just feel bad. Like, he got thrown into that role after the passing of the GOAT, a legend, Mike Leach. He kind of got thrown into that. Not his players, not really anything, and then he gets fired year one. So I don't know if it would have worked out, but he didn't necessarily have a chance. So I kind of feel bad for him. But, yeah, it's kind of wild. Two head coaches getting fired after coaching against each other. So a couple players that I noted, Jayden Daniels and Dylan Gabriel. Jayden Daniels in a 52-35 win over Florida went 17 for 26, 372 yards, and 3 touchdowns passing. 12 carries, 234 yards, and 2 touchdowns rushing. So he's the first player in FBS history to pass for 350-plus and run for 200-plus in a single game. He is my Heisman. I will go ahead and say that now. I would lock that in. As long as he just doesn't crap the bed, that dude is my Heisman. I think they play Georgia State this week. He seriously needs to put up like crazy numbers in this one. But this alone is unreal. Like, his numbers are so much better than some of these other Heisman candidates. So I know a lot of it's based on winning, and they've got 3 losses. But man, Jayden Daniels, he deserves a Heisman. He's making history. He's got my vote. I'll just go ahead and say that now. Dylan Gabriel, in a 59-20 win over West Virginia, went 23 for 36, 423 yards, 5 touchdowns, passing. 11 carries, 50 yards, 3 touchdowns rushing. So he's the first Oklahoma quarterback ever to be responsible for 8 touchdowns in a single game. So when you think about who they've had, that is insanely impressive. 8 touchdowns is crazy. I would venture to say there's probably not that many in college football history, but he's the first of Oklahoma to do that. So, yeah, another insane stat line. So some of the games from last week. Number 8, Alabama at Kentucky. So I was in attendance of this one. I predicted 34-17 Alabama, and they destroyed us. Alabama won 49-21 in a game that couldn't have felt less close. That doesn't even show it. That doesn't do it justice. That doesn't show how big of a blowout it was. It was not 28 points close. We scored late, so it was 49-14. They could have scored a few more times. Jalen Milroe, though, 15 for 22, 234 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He had 8 rushes for 36 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. He's the first player to have 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in the same game in Alabama history. So, he balled out. He has nearly played himself into the Heisman race. And there's been people saying that if he's not in New York when it comes to the end of the season, that it's a crime. Because what he's doing right now and the way he's flipped the script on this season, it's impressive. He's absolutely balling and at the right time. So hopefully we get to see a lot more of Jalen Milroe. He's just become dominant all of a sudden. Then we had number 3 Michigan at number 10 Penn State. I picked Penn State to upset, and I've got to stop doing this because Penn State does not win these games. They don't win against these big-time opponents. Michigan won 24-15. The biggest takeaway for me, this was kind of like a game where it felt like Penn State was never gonna win it. Penn State scored first, and it still didn't feel like they were going to. The best takeaway for me, Kenneth Grant tackle for Michigan in the second quarter. It's a big D lineman from Michigan. He hawks down. I don't know if it was Singleton or another running back for Penn State, but he hawks him down. Awesome. Y'all got to look it up. Kenneth Grant is the name. Remember it. Miami at number 4, Florida State. Battle for the Florida Cup. I picked Florida State big. I thought this was a game that they needed to win or they had a chance of dropping back in the playoff rankings. But they win it close and they stay at 4. They win 27-20 in this one. And the takeaway for me is simply Keon Coleman is a dog. So this is something that's been known. I feel like I've talked about him like 8 times this season. But this game, he just balled out. Like he had the final touchdown to score 27 to get the Seminoles to 27. And it was literally a PI. And he still caught the touchdown. He's just crazy. There's no words that you can say on how lucky Florida State was to get him out of the portal this offseason. Then we had number 13 Tennessee at number 14 Missouri. So number 13 at number 14. I picked Missouri. I picked Missouri by 10. Missouri won 36-7. Honestly, everything changed in this game when Tennessee was driving down the field right before half to tie it at 10. They fumble it with like 20 seconds left. Missouri flips the field, gets in field goal range, goes up 13-7 at half, and that was the story of the game. They absolutely dominated the second half, and Cody Schrader continues to put on a show week in and week out. He had 205 yards rushing and 116 yards receiving, and he had a touchdown to go along with it. So with him back there, Missouri can compete with the best of them, in my opinion. They continue to dominate. And Tennessee, they got a big matchup this week that I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But it was a bad loss for Tennessee. Bad loss to get destroyed like that. And for college game day, we had number 9 Ole Miss at number 2 Georgia. My prediction was Georgia, big. I had them by 14. But that was kind of like generous. I thought I thought Georgia was easily going to cover the spread. I thought that would never be an issue. I think the spread was 10.5. Georgia won 52-17. So this was Brock Bowers' first game back. Wasted no time. Got a touchdown. But Ole Miss, I mean, early they fought. They ended up scoring a touchdown on their first drive. It got called back for like holding or something, and then they just scored like the next play. And it looked like it was going to be either a shootout or Ole Miss with a W on the road. But Georgia just continued to show why they are number one in the country, and that's what shifted. Georgia is now number one in the playoff rankings. But Georgia had 611 yards of offense in this game. It was complete dominance. They had 300 rushing, 311 passing. So it was an impressive game. The Dogs just continue to roll. And they find themselves in a big one this week that I'll get to here in a few. So for Week 12 college football, Pac-12, we got number 22 Utah at number 17 Arizona. I am going with Utah, 27-20 on the road. I just think the offense is starting to figure it out. They're starting to click, and they get it done on the road. And, I mean, Arizona's had such a phenomenal year, outstanding year overall. But, yeah, I think this is where the Cinderella story kind of ends for them. So I have Utah on the road. And then we have number 1, Georgia, at number 18, Tennessee. I got Georgia on the road, 41-31. This is a game that me and Cade had penciled in on the calendar, probably when the schedules were released. And, I mean, once they had won their second championship in a row, we were like, Tennessee could be the team to knock them off. That was like the hardest game that they had. Ole Miss ended up being a lot harder than we projected it being preseason. But, yeah, this is an insane game. This will be a wild one. But I got Georgia by 10 in Knoxville. We had number 21, Kansas State, at number 25, Kansas. So I'm sure this rivalry probably has a name. Don't know it. Not going to lie to you. But I'm taking Kansas. I think Kansas gets it done at home. 28-17 over the Wildcats. Then we had number 5. We have number 5, Washington, at number 11, Oregon State. Corvallis, absolutely brutal place to play. You can ask any Pac-12 fan. So I actually have Oregon State completing the upset. So this is where Washington's undefeated season comes to an end. And I think Oregon State gets it done 37-30 by a touchdown. So number 5, Washington goes down to number 11, Oregon State in Corvallis. Then we have College Game Day, which is going to Virginia, and not for any of the schools that are known for like college sports. Appalachian State is traveling to James Madison. The Dukes are 10-0 right now. They're a 9-point favorite in this game, and they're still not allowed to play in the postseason. It's ridiculous. It is an outrageous thing, and they're going to win the Sun Belt. Or I think they've already won the Sun Belt, but they won't be able to play in the conference championship because they have a postseason ban. Because the NCAA will not allow you to play. I think it's within the first 3 years of you transferring like divisions. They went from FCS to FBS, and now they're being kind of screwed over by it. So I'm rooting on the Dukes in this one, and I got the Dukes big. I got James Madison winning 38-10 in this one. So this will be an exciting week. I'm excited. I'm excited for this college football. This is what, week 12 now, so we have one more. We'll have rivalry week. But this is where the playoff always eventually works itself out. This is where it starts. This is where we start seeing some of these teams drop games and find themselves out of the playoff. And we'll probably start to see if Jayden Daniels is going to win Heisman. We will be able to start to see that this week as they go against Georgia State. As I mentioned earlier, crazy NFL week. NBA is still doing the in-season tournament. It's Tuesdays and Fridays until I think it's through the end of November, and then they go to Vegas, and I think it's the top 2 teams from each pod or whatever. But Yeah, so it's an exciting time. All these sports are going on. Currently, it is 21-13, Ravens over Bengals with 8:56 left in the third. So I'm going to catch the rest of this game. And you all have a great weekend. Enjoy these sports coming up this weekend. Thank you all for tuning in. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, show some love. It's greatly appreciated for some hard work put in. So thank you all. Enjoy all these amazing sports this weekend. And peace.